Okay, we're going to go over the pitchfork. Again, order of operations. First thing we do, path of travel. The second thing we do is identify the cones that are a possible risk to us. And then the third thing is we look at the best line to get around this thing. Some of those line choices are going to be based on where we came from, where we're going, and how tight the cone pattern is. Are there options left to right? Things like that. So, first thing, path of travel. So as we can see with this pitchfork pattern, we have these 3 discs or pucks for a cone weave. So we're going to take that, and this kicks us off having to start left of the first cone. And that might matter depending on some of these things where they'll say, okay, well, ladies' choice, go whichever way you want. And then up here, we maybe have to make a left, for example. Well, if we went like this, we'd get through here and it might kick us weird versus if we were to take this right first. So path of travel in the initial portion in a cone weave may dictate how smooth it is to come out here. So point being, if they don't articulate, and unfortunately they did in this case, but if they don't articulate whether you dive in left of this first cone or right of this first cone, take a look at where you're going to end up, and then you got to figure out what the smooth line is going to be. And you'll notice too, surprisingly, there will be a significantly easier path or a safer path where you're not as close to other cones and people just won't take it for whatever crazy reason. Okay, so this is left of the first cone. So we're going to go through this cone weave. We're going to dive in right, and we're essentially making a circle for all intents and purposes, a rectangle with a little jog here. And then we drop back here. I'm assuming, again, it doesn't really show here, but once we're around here, typically you're going to have to come back out, and it won't be straight. It'll typically be through these cones again. That's usually how these go. The way that it looks like it's been drawn here in green is that it's just coming out and we're finishing off in that direction. So we'll talk about it both ways. So that's the path of travel. Now the second portion of our exercise is what cones are dangerous. Obviously these 3 cones which have been articulated are definitely the danger cones. Now we're coming out of this thing swinging out here. So because this cone's here, this cone is not really a danger cone. It's forcing us out. So it was good that this wasn't identified. It's not really an issue. But the fact that this forces us out, I would argue this cone is definitely a danger cone. It's a danger cone going in, and it's a danger cone coming out. What do I mean by that? So you're dropping, you have to go through these 2 cones. Potentially we could hit this thing if we're not careful, dropping in this way. And once we come around, dropping back out, it's a risky cone. So we want to make sure we identify that as something we got to look for. Now this line came close to this cone, but I agree, these really aren't danger cones. I believe you pushed out here, not because you couldn't make this turn tighter, but because we want to road race this pattern. So I think that's a good choice. So in a case like this, though, one thing I would do is, again, we talk about reverse engineering these things and limiting the amount of actual turning movements that we make. So for me, let's just play for fun here. If we could arc this in such a way that it went like that, could we do that? Could we turn this into one smooth turning movement? Well, let's take a look. Let's see what that would require in order for us to do that. It's a very different place rather than up here, down here. So how would we do that? Well, it would start back here. This cone here, you've pushed way out here. This green line is way out here on this and out here. Well, what I do, this would be tight, but I would start trying to cut in earlier. I would try to, because take a look at the turning angle. First of all, I like that we're not coming in straight. We're coming in a little bit of an angle. That's great. Now we're making these pretty tight S's. Well, let's just pretend there was a cone there. What would you do? you'd dive in right here, wouldn't you? Let's just pretend there was a fourth cone here, about similar spaced, right? You would have to dive in somewhere around here and put you somewhere here. So if I could do that and keep that turning movement and bring myself out here, now I've essentially created less turning movements. Rather than, or we talk about upsetting the chassis the least. If I can continue this turning movement, so it's almost like, and yes, I understand that would be diving inside of here, but we want to miss this cone, so I'm pushing out here. That would be something I would probably do, and I would skip all the fat right in here. And again, my idea here is, is there some way I could generate a clean so that I could make this smooth all around here? Instead of this section here, you've road raced this out here for no real need because we have a long straightaway here. So theoretically, we don't really have to worry too much about setup on this next turn because we have a long straightaway with which to kind of reposition the bike. So I would push way out here to get myself. Now this is just a little jog, so I'm going to drop in here. This cone, is it really a risky cone? I'd say no. So I think you're right not to identify that as a danger cone. This, I think you would want to mark this as a danger cone because it's going to be one of those cones throughout the day that you practice, and you're going to start trying to shave time, and you're at some point going to really get close. You're going to try to straighten this line out right here. That's what's going to happen, and this cone's going to start getting hit. You go to a motor competition on practice day, this cone is the one that the assistant, the police trainee is picking up over and over again. So I'm going to road race myself out here. Again, these cones aren't really going to be an issue. I'm going to road race nice long sweeper here. I'm going to keep that turning movement, drop in. Now, so I like the line that you have here. I'm just essentially connecting to that line and coming out. So that's good. We're clear of this. And then if you look at what I drew over here, what does it look like? It looks exactly like what you drew here, doesn't it? So for whatever reason on here, you road race these and then you straighten this up. But over here, you did exactly what I'm talking about. So you almost paralleled me exactly. I could have just copied your second half of this pattern. So that's what I would do. Nice sweeping turn, just like you did here. And I might come up just a little bit before I drop back in. Just a little bit right here. I say might because really practice day, if I can cheat that. Your line's a little quicker. My only concern with that is this right here. So I might cheat this out just a little bit to drop back through here. Now, in either case, your line, my line, which really at this point kind of intersect, I'm only talking about just really like over here. I'm just kind of coming out and dropping back in. I'm coming out and dropping back in. If I was to have to hit these three cones, that wouldn't be an issue because I'm already pushed out this direction enough that I can just drop in here and follow your original line. So good choices. Again, if you split this thing into two, your lines here and my lines here, very similar, very similar. And the way you moved up here versus all the way up here, see the difference between these two? This whole section is much more like my section. So I'm just copying you on that one. But other than that, good job. Nice and smooth. Areas where I'm over time going to try to figure out how can I go faster. It's going to look like me getting closer to this cone and straightening this section out. Can I make this a straight line? If I can straighten that out, I can go faster. So how am I going to do that? I can do that by swinging this out and kind of drop, rather than dropping, kind of swoop here. I might pull this out. I might try to drop in a little tighter. So this isn't necessarily as smooth an arc as I'm drawing it here. It might be a little bit more like I'm kind of coming up a little bit and then dropping in. So I'm effectively getting a little closer to this cone. The risk I'm going to run and going faster here is this bad boy here. So I'm going to try to straighten this thing out, but I'm going to try to probably drop in a little tighter on here. So I'm going to come in and drop in a little tighter, and then just a little jog, and I'm going to get closer to this thing. Now this is a danger cone the way that we're doing it now. The way we're doing it before, where we're trying to get a smooth arc, because we're trying to carry that arc all the way down here, we're not going to get close to that. It's going to require that we pull out here. But now this whole drag race straight through here, it's going to put us closer to this cone and this cone and this cone. So again, I'm out and then drop in straight. Well, now that's going to push me. It's going to push me out here a little more. So this, and then I'm going to try to pull that back in. So that's kind of all it's really going to do. Is I'm not going to be able to get up here because I didn't dip in here to make that nice swoop to pull me up here. Instead, I'm just staying down here. Can I cheat the difference and kind of drop in tight and pull up a little bit and drop in and kind of cut 50-50? Probably. But the more of an S you make this, the easier it's going to be, the slower it's going to be, the safer it's going to be. So depending on how critical the time consequences might be if I touch or hit anything. Is this a tennis ball on top of a tall cone? 3 seconds if the tennis ball hits the ground. I'm not going to waste my time trying to get pretty, cheat this. I'm gonna take our original pattern because it's safer and let everybody else hit tennis balls. Other than that, that's really the only area in my mind I would be like, okay, I'm gonna really try to cheat this. Other than that, it's just like we drew it. Good job.